Welcome to season 2 of Next. I'm your host, Michael Sonnenfeld. I'm the founder of Tiger 21, and it's really amazing to welcome you here. May is a founder and CEO of Obviously, which is a pioneering influencer marketing agency. I had to learn what that was, by the way. She led Obviously through an acquisition by WPP, one of the world's largest advertising conglomerates. 2 years later, she's still leading the charge. But May's story isn't just about business. She started out selling rare books with her dad. She studied philosophy, graduated into a field that barely existed, built a global company, and raised a family. To kick things off, can you give us a quick overview of what Obviously does and what an influencer marketing agency means?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, before I do that, I do just want to say it's kind of a full circle moment for me because, Michael, I don't think I've even told you this, but I remember hearing you on a podcast. I think it was $1 Million Podcast or My First Million. And as I was like preparing to sell, Obviously, and I made it like a mini goal. I was like, oh man, this guy is the real deal. Like, and he's got this thing, Tiger. Like, I want to be able to join that. I want to make sure that the sale is that successful. And we did it, like, hit it incredibly well. And now I'm here. And now I'm here actually talking to you on a podcast. So it's pretty special.
Kind of cool. So Obviously, what is it?
So we do influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is actually about 70% of high schoolers in the United States. If you ask them what they want to do as a career, they will tell you they want to be an influencer or they want to be a creator. So this is like a huge shift. 13 years ago when I started the company, no one knew what an influencer was. So this is just, there's been a rapid rise of this concept. And basically, people are spending 4, 5, 8 hours a day on social networks. Creators are people who are on those social networks, actively creating content, building audiences, could be several thousand, could be several million followers. And then we coordinate brand deals for those people. So just like you'd have, the brand deal between Michael Jordan and Nike, several decades ago, we're basically doing that with people who are very large on TikTok, who are very large on Instagram, who are very large on YouTube. So we'll coordinate the deal for a huge basketball influencer on Instagram with Dick's Sporting Goods or with Puma. And we built the technology that actually allows us to do that at scale. So instead of working with one Michael Jordan, you can work with 1,000 basketball influencers on TikTok, or even 10,000. Or we actually have a client who will work with 300,000 creators this year. So it's our technology plus our full service team that really makes that happen.
And is there a ranking? Are you ranked within your industry? Are you number one, or how does that work?
So the industry is fascinating. And a huge part of my job that I love is just figuring out where is it going? How is it evolving? Where's the revenue today? Which actually can be a moving target, and it's really fun to figure that out. And not to brag, but I think I am really good at that part of it. This is where a company is going to spend a few $1 million, this year. There's been a lot of mergers. There've been a lot of really, really small startups that have gotten made a few million and then really can't quite crack that ceiling. So we're definitely top 1, top 2, top 3.
Pretty amazing to start a company from scratch in a completely new industry, and now be at the top of one of the globe's most important industries. Let's just rewind a bit. Can you share a little bit about your early life? Was there anything in your childhood that you think shaped your drive or set the stage for your success?
Yeah, there was a lot of things that happened in my childhood that I think really set me up to understand that I wanted to become an entrepreneur and that the right risks are good, and not only good, but necessary in order to really get the things that you want. I have, an awesome family. I have great parents. My mother actually was an entrepreneur as well. She was a librarian and then created basically like a corporate library force. So people who would kind of pre-Google would go sit in McDonald's, would go sit in Genentech, and would make sure that people could actually find out the information they needed. It's kind of crazy to think like what we did pre-Google.
Yeah.
And so I remember just thinking as a little kid, like, this is so cool. And then my dad really helped her, build the business on the operations side. And he had a full-time job as well. I always was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. You can really be in control. You can have the freedom. You can do what you want if you are the one running the show. And then I think just in terms of risk-taking, there were a few like really key moments, and they sound kind of funny now, but like actually was like the state champion pitcher when I was 11 years old in Massachusetts. And I remember I was like fourth in the list of pitchers on the team, and everyone else had, spending tens of thousands of dollars on pitching coaches, going to camps, whatever. And I quickly realized that like other people's parents were the coaches. I was like, okay, the deck is kind of stacked against me here, but I'm really smart and I can really work the ball around the plate, and I'm playing 11-year-olds. Like, this isn't that hard. I can figure this out. So I really figured out how to be very, very cool and calm under pressure, and how to win baseball games, even if I wasn't the fastest pitcher there. And even at 11, I was like, okay, I've really adopted this. I'm the underdog here, but I've got a lot going for me. And like, why not me? Like, this should be me. I should be the one doing this.
It's a big why not me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you just have to continue to choose yourself. You have to keep saying like, no, like I'm going to choose to do the hard thing. I'm going to choose to put myself out there, and I'm going to choose the pressure. And even this week, I'm going to the hard meeting. I'm setting up those hard situations. And I think you just got to keep on doing that to be successful.
Yeah. It's interesting across our colleagues in Tiger, some get to be amazing entrepreneurs because of some childhood stumbling block, a disease, polio, a lisp, ADD, parents alcoholic, terrible, terrible things that made them come out of the gate saying, I can prove to the world that I can do better than everybody else. The world has such a low expectation of me that I can prove that I can do better. And yet there are others that come out of childhoods that seem almost perfectly normal, and yet they also have drive. I'm wondering if, when you think about other people who are as successful as you are, do you see these two themes? How do you reconcile the fact that some kids that come out of the worst circumstances have the most amazing success because they're driven to prove the world wrong, and yet other kids come out of really great families with great values and have really wonderful memories about their childhood, and yet they too are propelled to greatness?
I mean, I have two sons. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, boys. So I think about this actually all the time, talk about this with my Tiger group all the time too. And I actually think of it a little bit differently. I think of, am I raising children that will challenge convention? Because I think that that's really what you need to do. There's a well-worn path. And if you're on the well-worn path, you're going to have the well-worn life. If you're out there bushwhacking and figuring it out for yourself and constantly choosing the harder thing, I think that's the person who's going to succeed. So you could have like a major traumatic event, or you could just really sort of have the understanding early on that I don't have to do what everyone else is doing. Actually, if everyone's doing it, I probably should ask more questions about what they're doing.
Does that fall into the category of grit? Meaning, when you fail at something, you just pick it up and keep doing it until you figure it out, even if you're the only one doing it and nobody else is doing it, but you have a vision, something about you has a drive to prove and have the grit to see it through.
Yeah, I love that someone actually like named that, because I was like, what is this? And I definitely say that it's grit. And I think it has to really, to be successful, become a practice. People talk about meditating or gratitude, but I think that the practice of being gritty, and do I have something on my calendar every day? That's a challenge. Some people have that in athletics, like, oh, I have to do something really hard, like David Goggins, like I have to do something super hard, like I have to run up a mountain. But I think, for me, it's like, do I have something really challenging that will challenge me either in the way that I have a really difficult conversation that challenges, my ability to communicate effectively while delivering something like a tough message? Or do I need to put together a really complex deal? Or do I need to pitch someone something very aggressive? Or do I need to have a really good big idea? I think always making sure that you have those challenges literally on a daily basis. And that's actually how I talk to my EA as well. I'm like, do I have something every day right now that is, and if I don't, that means that my priorities probably aren't focused where they need to be.
What's an example of something like that?
So yesterday I went down to the city. I'm upstate for the summer, and had a really difficult conversation about the status of a partnership. And, those things that like still kind of get your adrenaline up, still kind of get your stomach a little bit nervous. And I think making sure that you always have something that kind of that's like my nausea test, I guess. Is like, do I have something that's going to makes me feel a little bit like, I got to figure this one out. I have to spend some extra time really like, preparing for this. I think it's just important that you always have that, so that you're growing and so that what you're building is growing too.
We mentioned grit, but one of the other amazing traits of some of the most successful entrepreneurs is the ability to delay gratification. You may remember the marshmallow test. Yeah. I talk about it a lot in my book because, 3-year-olds were put at a table and put a marshmallow in front of each of them. Teacher said, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Anyone who has a marshmallow left will get 2 marshmallows. And out of the 20 kids, only 3 kids had enough discipline to wait. The others had to eat their marshmallow. And it sounds like a crazy little test, but they tracked those kids for like 30 or 40 years, literally. And it turns out the marshmallow test is still the single best predictor of success in life from a 3-year-old perspective of any test that apparently has ever been designed. And it's all about delayed gratification. Is that something that you've noticed you have a particular ability around, and has it played a role in your success?
Oh yeah, and my 3-year-old hates that test, by the way. I do that. He's like, just give me the candy. But he's done a good job, so we're working on it. Yeah, I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. I talked to a lot of women entrepreneurs, especially, and you can just tell when someone's like in the middle of it, kind of in the middle of a storm, going through a tough time. And I just think the number of times that I really could have quit is honestly too many to count. And I remember during COVID, for example, I had an offer to buy the company for like $25 million, which, that was several years ago. And I was just like, I don't know, like what this pandemic's going to happen. Like this bank account is looking very low. Should I just take it and leave? Like that's just one example. Or I had some other times where a huge vendor didn't pay us. And this was like a few years on. And I was like, how am I going to make payroll? It was Christmas and I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay the team. So that's 2 of like, a million instances where it's like, this is just really hard. Is this worth it? But then, yeah, just always coming back to like, no, I got to keep going. I got to keep plodding along. And almost not even thinking about it anymore. I think, becomes part of the practice too.
One of the things I've appreciated about you is your connection to your family and the nice things that you say both about your mother and your father and how they were influencers. If you had to try and imagine, what was the biggest influence that your mom had on you and what was the biggest influence that your dad had on you?
Yeah, shout out John and Maureen. I'm sure they'll listen to this. Yeah, they've been hugely influential. And then they're even so helpful now too, as I continue to grow the company and continue to want to do really big things. They help out so much with the kids. Like they're just such a support as well. With my mom, there's just, I actually, for her 70th birthday, I wrote down a list of quotes that like, she's just highly quotable. I should probably make a book of it. But one big one that she would say from when I was little was like, the opportunity train comes around once. And I was just like, whoa. I remember being little and being like, okay, like you got to jump, you got to get on the train when the train comes by. And I think that was the mentality, in my family. It was like, you got to take the risk. Like, it's better to take the risk. It wasn't like, am I going to fail? Or like, failure's okay. It was just like, if the train is coming by, you got to get on the train. And I think that is something that I really am trying to impart in my children and figure out how to do that too. And then my dad's support was, is just emotional, but I think hugely tactical too. Like as I was getting started with the company, we joke now that he's the senior advisor because he's senior, and really helping with QuickBooks, like helping me call vendors who weren't paying me, and just like helping me like learn the operational side of the business when it was running out of my apartment. So like that was huge. I was like, okay, I can do this. Like this is doable. There's a model here in front of me, and yeah, that's been great.
What's so interesting about many Tiger 21 members is that many have ADHD and other learning differences, and those challenges have helped them achieve extraordinary success. Many of the traits that define successful entrepreneurs, like curiosity, hyperfocus, and creative problem solving, are also hallmarks of learning differences. What can be a challenge in one environment can actually be a tremendous advantage in another. Isaac, I know you've been researching a nonprofit called understood.org. Can you tell us more about the organization and what makes them so special?
Sure. So we aim to support giving that strengthens the fabric of our society. And understood.org supports that mission by helping millions of people with learning and thinking differences, like ADHD and dyslexia, unlock their full potential. By equipping individuals, families, and educators with practical resources and community support, Understood helps turn what some might see as challenges into opportunities for innovation, leadership, and impact. When we help people harness their unique ways of thinking, everyone benefits. This season, we'll be matching donations up to a total of $10,000, $100 per gift, to support understood.org and their work to ensure that every person who learns and thinks differently can thrive. Learn more at www.understood.org and visit muse.com/giving. That's MUUS.com/giving, or visit the link in the show notes to give today, matched by us.
It's so interesting. I'm wondering, another variation of what you just said is that luck tends to favor those who are ready and willing to take the risk. And I'm imagining that train coming by, and some people just let it go by, and some people are ready to jump onto the train. It's the people who are jumping on because that train is coming by, they don't want to miss it, that sometimes leads to great success. And yet, I had a partner, just like you had your mother had these expressions. I had a partner who used to say, don't worry, the deal of a lifetime comes across your desk every day. You just have to be willing to look for it. And that's almost the opposite, which is you're saying, don't let an opportunity pass you by because it may not come again. There's an element of that. But there's also an element that if you don't do something, don't fret. There will be another opportunity if you just are willing to look for it. You're open to it. And I found that, like, in times where I've lost a deal and I say, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. If I just say there'll be an opportunity of a lifetime, I just have to be willing to look for it, see it, and jump when it comes. Are those kind of compatible in your mind?
I think so. I think that because it comes down to you at the end, right? Like, so it's like, if you're the one who's going to get the deal, like, can you get it done? And there will be another one, but, don't be afraid to take the opportunity in hand. And I think especially starting out, that's like really, really important. But I think also, to your point, they're having the ability to look really hard and see things that other people don't see is almost a superpower in itself. I remember being in college and I was in philosophy and anthropology classes, and I'm like, the internet is this huge thing. Like, how come I don't have one class on it? In terms of like societal impact and like the way societies are structured. More people meet online now via apps than they do like find their partners. Like, just in every element, we spend more time online than we do talking to real people. And I remember talking to my anthropology teacher, who was like renowned in his field, but it was because he was studying the Maasai in Kenya. He had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, wow, maybe I'm really ahead of this thing. Maybe I can find the pockets of opportunity here that no one else is seeing. And I think if you kind of come to it with that viewpoint, there are a lot of diamonds, in this mountain. I just have to be the one to go and find them. I think that works too.
I'm wondering, you've talked in a couple different situations about selling rare books with your dad.
Yeah.
And the thing about, I'm wondering if an element of it was setting the price. And what I mean is that many of us grow up thinking that a price has some magic to it, and others who are maybe a little more entrepreneurial realize a price is just what a seller and a buyer can agree to. Nothing has an intrinsic value. I think in rare books, there must have been cases where you found a book at a very low price that you couldn't believe what your good luck was, and then you found a way to sell it at a very high price and realize that price, there's no inherent price to that rare book. It's just what the demand is. And I'm wondering if that's sort of a lesson that you took and how it impacts on your business today.
Yeah, I am still like so fond about that. My dad actually still has like, I don't know, a few thousand books in my house. So and one will be sold. We'll like get the email that it's sold and like go and find it. So it's really fun. And yeah, I mean, I think that building that business, first of all, he kind of developed this hobby of understanding what's a first printing, what's rare, what's not. We started really focusing on debut authors and a first printing of their first edition. So clearly, I could launch into hours of this, but I won't do that to you or any listeners. But I think the big thing was that we would then go to yard sales and thrift shops and go to a dinner party at someone's house and just check out their check out their wall as you're with them. Go to basements and I remember we were in a small town in Vermont and a tiny library with very dim lighting, and we found a really a pretty rare book, Master Commander by Patrick O'Brien. And I was like, oh, we could sell this for $700. This is awesome. There's nothing else online, and it was signed. So I think the big thing for me was we can just build this thing. We're building something out of literally nothing. And that was so exciting to me. I had a few summer jobs where you're doing the same thing as everyone else. And then one summer I was like, I'll just digitize your whole library, Dad, and we'll put it online and we'll figure out how to do it. And that's just it just felt like magic to me, there's just something out of nothing. And on the pricing side, I think that is something I learned very early on too, where you're really, especially with influencer marketing, I was testing the market. I was trying to understand if people would buy this. So it's anyone would do something for $3,000 if you're a business, but who's going to do something for $100,000? Because that was really showing me who's going to do something for several $1,000,000. Now the deals are just so much larger. And that is just the validation that I needed, that I'm in the right direction, that I'm figuring this thing out, because it was so new. We maybe had a few competitors, but I barely knew them, that almost using it to test the market. Is there a market here, and can we create one? And so that's really how I look at pricing. And whenever people price things too low, I get upset.
When you take philosophy, and maybe this is true with other liberal arts, do you ever look back and see other people in your industry who might have been technology people in college or sort of geeks? You were the opposite of a geek, taking philosophy. Do you think liberal arts, if a young person came to you and said, what should I study? Are you in the camp that liberal arts sort of sets you up for a type of life? Or do you think you should go right into focusing on where your career is?
Oh, no, I love the philosophy major. I love having interviews with people and hiring people who have a philosophy major or something in the liberal arts that's just super abstract, intellectual. I'm feeling really validated right now as the rise of AI, pre-professional. And the trend was very much go pre-professional. And there's still definitely a strain of that. I think the big thing right now is the abstract side of being a human is the thing that's going to be most valuable. And is the most valuable to me right now. Someone told me once, intelligence is the ability to build relationships between things. And that is totally how I see the world. A big part of my job is seeing different things that are happening and figuring out how they connect to one another. And that's something that we're going to be way ahead, hopefully, we're going to be way ahead of AI on. And that's what you're going to need to hire people to do. You need people to figure that out. You need people to figure out emotional intelligence, or even the idea with philosophy of a thought experiment. It's we're going to just isolate something, create the elements of it, run through that scenario and figure out if it's true or not. That's what every kid needs to do. That's what every adult needs to do in their job. And the ability to argue, to write, to be articulate. I think those are the real true skills. And I'm kind of excited that things are, swinging back in that direction.
If you're on this show and a Tiger member, just very generally, you're about 1 in 10,000 by accomplishment. It's something that you and I share. And the way we like to think about it is if you're a major baseball, basketball, or football player, you're about 1 in 17,000 by accomplishment, just as a reference. But if you took the all-stars out, in this case, the billionaires, and looked at all of the entrepreneurs in America that share our level of success, it's about 1 in 10,000. And you really begin to see that. I don't know if you've been back to any of your high school or college reunions, the 5-year or 10-year or the 15-year, and you look at all these people that you either grew up with, many of whom you may have really deep fondness and great memories about. But was there a point where you sort of realized that you were on a different path, or you had chosen something that was far less conventional and had the faith that it might slow you down, but eventually it would catapult you forward. In other words, when you're starting the business, you're scraping things together, you're often living on a shoestring, but eventually if the idea is right, it catapults you into a very different world. And yet you still want to maintain relationships with people who are maybe leading a more conventional or less successful life. And how has that affected your perceptions?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question and something that I think about a lot. I think in terms of what I do compared to others, even in business, I kind of put blinders on. I don't like to compare myself to other people. I don't think it serves me or really does anything. I think that actually my husband and I, who we work a lot together, we talk a ton about our decision making. We're like, it's a core value that we're really good at making decisions. and we don't really care about, I think, like great context, great data points about what other people are doing, but that's about as far as it goes. We're going to make the best decisions for ourselves, for our businesses, for our family. And I think that's really the best way to approach it. And then I think, on the, maybe not the opposite side of that, but another aspect of that is you really want to build community. And I think it's really important to have really valuable family relationships, friend relationships, community relationships. And that's important for the kids too. So I think that I really separate those things in my mind. And I think also just making sure that I'm as generous as possible. And, with my time, with my attitude, if I can make connections for anyone. And I really try to stress that rather than, oh, they're doing this, should I do that too?
May, you're on such an amazing trajectory in your career. I hope I'm still around in 10 years and can interview again and see what's happened in the next 10 years. It's so exciting. For the closing, we always ask somebody about the tip jar. It's what we do in our groups, and now we do it on the podcast. Is there any one or two books or apps, movies, plays, or restaurants, or even a piece of advice that's made a big impact on your life and work? If you have one or two, that'd be great.
Yeah, I love the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, half of Andreessen Horowitz. I think that's just I literally read it once a year. I think that it just, and I think it kind of plays for all of life. The hard thing is usually the right thing. And that the thing you got to do. And I love that both in entrepreneurship and life. And I think the other thing may be a little bit more meta on the tip side, but I think so many people in Tiger are so successful. It's try to make sure you still have a hobby or develop a hobby or two. I've just found so much enjoyment and kind of reconnecting with, I've really gotten into perfume. I've really gotten into a few different things like that. And I'm just oh, this is just so fun to be able to really, to just have something totally outside, the thing that I'm so passionate about, and just have some fun with. And also surfing. I've gotten really into surfing too. So I think it's just to help round yourself out a little bit now that you are successful, take some advantage of that fact, I think is something I always remind my Tiger group too.
I suspect WPP doesn't have many women CEOs who are surfing in their spare time.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Just one of the many amazing things about you. Hey, thank you for being with us. This was such a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.
Seeing you around the trail. Really great. Thank you.